Hey guys, welcome back. So here we have my 2002 WRX wagon. I've had this car for quite a long time and racked up a lot of mileage on it. And then there we are on the mileage. In this video, I want to go over what it's like to have a really high mileage WRX and the problems you can encounter. And I am encountering some high mileage problems. Otherwise, I mean, visually it's a decent looking car. It's hanging in there. I haven't put it through the winter too often, and I do really keep up on the oiling with it, so it's maintaining to the best of my and its ability. So one of the first things, and you would not expect this is an original windshield in this. So after 550,000 kilometers, the windshield is actually so pitted that when you drive into the sun, the windshield just turns white. Like, this is the windshield clean. I cleaned it before pulling it in here. So that's the windshield clean. When it rains and you turn on the wipers, it's actually just a blur because all the water goes in the pores of the windshield, but still I can't bring myself to change the windshield for that reason. It's fine. I only drive the car in the summer, so it's okay. Sunglasses do the trick, and worst case scenario, I could always just Ace Ventura out the driver window and I'm all set. Another interesting bit, my center clock still works. I think I've actually taken this apart twice and had to resolder the contacts inside the board. It's a pretty common issue that they burn out, but they are easy to fix. We still have the original head unit. It works great. I always keep it stocked full of CDs, sometimes tapes, but it's getting hard to find tapes these days. And then there we are on the mileage. And as far as like high KM problems, for the most part, it's just general maintenance on repeat. So I've done the wheel bearings all the way around now twice. Then I'm on my fourth timing belt now. The clutch I've done twice. I don't really beat the poo out of it. Now I'm gonna throw the car up and show you what we've got going on underneath of the car. So somehow I've lost the clip where I've gone through the rest of the car and the underside, but now I've already taken it all apart, which is kind of a bummer. So I will show you some of the original items of concern, which all of these are going to go into great detail when I actually repair them. So that's at the back of the rocker there. There's a little tiny pinhole starting. My 12 mils did come out, which was fantastic. On the other side, same thing, little hole starting there. Little hole starting there, so I'm gonna have to cut that out. I do have this, which I didn't notice till I started actually taking it apart. That's right behind the front of the trailing arm mount. So it is starting to perforate there, so I'm gonna have to chop a section out there, do that. For this side, I do have another rail. I'm not sure the extent that I'm gonna go into it, but mainly the purpose for this job was that my gas tank was leaking over half a tank, so I'm replacing the gas tank. And then up in here, it doesn't matter how much you rust proof your car, the oil is not getting up in here, so this is the worst part of my car underneath. Other than that, the front is looking good. Like, my rad support nearly looks like new. I mean, it's got like a little surface spot there where it's missing paint. My U-frame's hanging in there. My control arms are looking good. My original transmission somehow is still working, even though lots of metal comes out of it every time. The front of my rockers are completely intact. I haven't had fender liners for a long time, so that actually kind of helps, but not really, because then you end up with, you know, big rocks, road debris in there, so that's beating the crap out of my, you know, front unibody there. So that is something you have to keep on top of cleaning and oiling, and if it does start to chip into the paint, you've got to keep up on the paint as well. Underneath, this car is unusual compared to, most of the GDs. In the salt belt, the rocker is completely intact on the inside and the outside and completely solid, like doesn't even have a speck of rust on it. My unibody looks sweet up here. My floor looks good because I use WeatherTech so I don't get water dripping through them. My exhaust hanger has rusted off here, so I do have another one to weld onto the car. And then the infamous shock towers. So I will go into detail on the shock towers later. I was able to capture that. So now we'll resume where I left off, which is going to be me actually removing all this and all the fun along the way. Oh boy, do we have some activity going on in here. So let's start with this little guy. This is pretty suspicious rust. Normally you wouldn't get rust there. That rust also smells like fuel. So I'm a little more confident that my tank leak has been from vibration here. And the fuel's taking the paint off, and then it's creating rust with the moisture. So we will get back to that later once we get the tank down and confirm. Then into the shock tower. So this is much more gnarly than I had anticipated. This section of the tower was not replaced. You can see that is my patch there. So there's the tar looking stuff. It's somewhat hanging in there. It did its job as a water stopper. But this is all gonna have to be cut out. I'm gonna have to reconstruct almost this whole tower. Where it meets up to the quarter panel, it's not too bad. It's really hanging in there. A little bit of flakiness going on there. At the back of the same tower there, where it seams to the quarter panel, it's a little flaky there, so I'm probably going to address that. And as you can see, the severity of the rust on the tower itself continues to be not awesome. Over to the other tower, it's also bad. You can see there where it is spot welded to the quarter panel as well. It is starting to get a little flaky and a little flaky behind the seat belt there. There's one of my ghetto patches. It's somewhat, again, doing its job of being a hole deleter, but underneath it is starting to corrode as well, so it has grown. Again, I'm probably going to get into having to reconstruct this whole tower, if not replace it. Then up the other side there, you can see a bit more of the seam starting to swell up there with the rust. Again, my vintage ghetto patch there is hanging in and doing its job. It has not got any worse. But the rust has also spread above my other ghetto patch. So I've definitely got my work cut out for me with this rear end here. But the car to me is definitely worth saving. Have some weird kind of spot weld rust going on here, so that should be easy to clean up. It won't take major intervention. Looking at my rear bumper beam with the actual bumper cover off, it is still solid. It is definitely lost all its original coating, as you can see here, but I believe it is solid enough that I can take this back down to metal and recoat it, and this will do just fine carrying on. Along with my taillight brackets, they're just de-painted but not rotten. This guy's even doing better than the other one. One of the reasons I started with taking the interior out first in the rear in preparation to do my gas tank is you do have to take out the rear subframe to do it. So I was looking for some holes. So there was originally some tape over these holes. I'm trying to get some penetrate to the bolts that hold the subframe to the unibody. I really don't want the weld nut to spin, but in reality it is very likely it is going to spin. But what I'm going to do is kind of flood in there with some penetrate, and I will wait a day or so before I try attempting to undo the rear subframe. Looks like my camera died getting the cap back off there. But now that some time has gone by, you can see my penetrate is making its way through the center hole there. And you can see it up in there, so hopefully it made its way to the bolts and it makes it come out a little easier. Then moving up into the front, I've drained my transmission fluid. I put the fluid in 55,000 kilometers ago, so it's about due to be changed. And when you take out the center drive shaft, you end up getting fluid coming out of the tailstock anyway, so this will avoid that mess. Back at the pan here, I'm not sure how much metal is in the bottom of the pan, but I'll show you how much is on the drain plug. It's a pretty significant amount. It's amazing the transmission still works. It had about this much come out the last time I changed the fluid, so something's breaking down in there. But it is actually really quiet still, and I'm gonna continue to rock it until it doesn't want to rock anymore. Go ahead and comment as to what part of the transmission do you think this is? Because it's not the dipstick. That already went through the transmission the last time, and the pieces came out the bottom. This is some new stuff, undiscovered. With the drain plug all restored, we are good to go. So back in the hole for you. And obviously at the same time here, since we have to drop the whole rear end, we are going to remove the rear diff gear oil as well. Alright, a lot less surprises in the rear diff there. It looks super clean. Here's a fun one. We call this the long bolt going through the rear spindle here. It has never been removed to my knowledge. When I did the rear bearings, I just dropped the diff, pulled the axles out, and worked on the bare spindle on the car. Let's go ahead and give them a brap, because I do have to get them out eventually to replace these rear control arms. See what happens here. Quite shocked there. This long bolt came out. Unbelievable. Very uncommon. As for this side, pretty cliche. So it's willing to spin on this side. On this side, the bolt is seized to the bushing sleeve. So what I'm gonna do is cut right in between there. All right, the cut is complete. So we were able to just get the top of the bushing and the bolt cut simultaneously there. Now, if you are reusing your, rear control arm and you end up in this situation, it doesn't really matter. Obviously you had to replace this bushing anyway. So you just pop that bushing out, put a new one in, and get yourself a new long bolt, and you are back on track. But yeah, it was well in there and not willing to come out. So now we'll see if we can spin the rest of the long bolt out, which I think we will do just fine. Okay, so it came out no problem after cutting the other end off. Here we are with the tank out. I don't see anything super obvious yet. It's kind of soft. Yeah, lots of bubbles. I mean, any one of these can leak. And I mean, the seam itself, this is very not good. It's like just powder. here is a potential, maybe if I clean off more of the dirt. There's another big bubble. Usually where gas leaks is gonna be like clean from the gas running over it. Also so covered in dirt that it's really hard to tell what's going on. And for the last 2 years, I haven't actually filled the tank up past half, so it hasn't leaked for the past 2 years. But regardless, that's not a good tank anymore. So I do have a new sending unit. I'll see if I can reuse any of these plastic lines. I'll probably replace this guy. It's rare that the wires are still connected, but it's just too rusty to keep on there. And something now I'm gonna do before I get myself into trouble is, we still have the motor and transmission in the car. We have the arms where we normally jack it up from. The back ones are moved back further, but now all the weight is in the front of the car. So to keep myself from getting squished or having the car do a front flip, I'm gonna lower it back down, put some stands on the front, and I'm gonna move these arms up as far as I can, like hopefully hitting one of the you know, subframe bolts there, just so I don't end up doing a front flip off the hoist. So here we are underneath. That is not looking too good. A little crusty up above there. It's gonna take some serious attention here, cleaning this all up, because I mean, even though I oil this car well underneath, you can't get above where the gas tank sits, so it is what it is. I still have the filler neck to remove. I'm gonna replace that. The rest of the evap stuff, which I'm gonna delete. I'd like to take the rear bumper beam out so I can clean that up as well. And then remove the old brake lines to replace. And then we're into actually cleaning this all up and starting to chop away the rust and replace with some new metal. Out of the car for the most part that I need to remove. There is some front end modifications I'm gonna do, but that's not really at this stage at the moment. So I still gotta actually take off the sway bar brackets. See that little bolt snapped, very classic. And boy, do I have a mess to clean up. This is pretty gnarly. So from here, I'm going to wrap up this video as part 1. I did complete my objective of removing everything I need to remove to begin the actual rust repair. And we sure have a lot of it to do, including the shock towers up above, as you remember seeing earlier. So in the next one, we will get into removing the rust, cutting out the bad metal, replacing it with new stuff, preserving all this before we're able to put our tank back in, and a variety of other things that need to be done. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. Would you fix this car or would you move on to something else? That wraps it up here, guys, for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2.